Okay, welcome and good morning. Everybody's up? Okay. We want to thank the Agile Planning Committee. Um, they've been really working very, very hard to set up this conference every week, multiple hours, and we thank our Thai organizing committee who really did a tremendous job. Thank you very much. The Agile mission statement we developed, and it's on the back of your brochure, so I'm not going to read it, and there's going to be a whole session discussing the mission statement. So there was a recent publication and actually several additional publications that came out that said essentially the same thing. Over the past 45 years, prevention and screening has accounted for almost 5 million or 4.75 of 5.95 million lung cancer deaths averted. So they recommended more investment in prevention and screening strategies. And those screening strategies were very effective in breast, cervical, colorectal cancer. It was mainly smoking cessation for the lung cancer and the prostate. So as 8 out of 10 of those deaths were averted. So we heartily welcome more funding and more attention to this topic, and your help in all of the countries will be very, very valuable. So the global statistics of lung cancer are that 2.2 million were diagnosed with lung cancer. It's really 1/5 of all deaths from cancer are caused by lung cancer, twice as many deaths as the most frequent other cancers. And it places a high economic burden, really, because of the more than any other cancer. So without low-dose screening in many countries, the cure rate is very low. So as part of the updates, we've now screened over 100,000. We have 104,390 participants in more than 80 institutions in 10 countries in the world. And we keep updating that data. We're adding one country in Africa and one country in Central Asia that we'll be working with in the future as well. So in I-ELCAP, we really screened 40 individuals who are 40 and older, whether they've smoked or never smoked. It really depends on each institution can set the standards, but at our place in New York City, we screen never smokers as well as smokers 40 and older. We have long-term follow-up as these people have stayed with us really from the 1990s. It's amazing. They come back many years. So among those that are cured of their first lung cancer, we're finding second, third, fourth primaries, and they've survived all of those additional primaries. So really, lung preservation strategies are very important, and alternative treatments, because you can only resect so much of the lung, are very important and should have a prominent role in the future. So we provide Screening Plus, the updated I-ELCAP management system, to all of the hospitals working with us, and it's now being integrated with AI assistance. That is our I-ELCAP AIRS project, which we're making as an open source. We're developing this product as an open source, free to the world, to adapt and to integrate in their systems. So we published last year, and we actually received the award for the best scientific paper of the year from the Radiologic Society of North America. And we showed that really survival, if you come back on an annual basis, is very high. 80% of all cancers, interim cancers, as well as diagnosed through the annual screening, is 81%. And if you find it in the earliest stage 1A, it's 95%. So really you can cure the lung cancer. And so the continuation and follow-up, because we're finding they're surviving their first lung cancer, they're at highest risk of their next cancer. So you need to come back on a regular basis. We had said this in the New England Journal back in 2006. We really had the same rates at that time, but we now have the long-term follow-up that there's no lead time bias, And the overdiagnosis is we carefully look at non-solid nodules and strategize our treatments accordingly. We now have over 350 screening-related publications, and in the last year, we've had 45 accepted and submitted articles, and we're focusing on long-term follow-up of the calcium coronary artery calcification score and the emphysema scores, in addition to lung cancer. We had a prospective cohort study looking at radiation therapy versus surgery for non-small cell lung cancers that are 20 millimeters or less. And they're really equivalent in the, if you focus on the smaller cancers. We're looking at the impact of diagnostic delays on lung cancer cure rates. We did that in the I-ELCAP database, in the National Lung Screening Database, and in the ISLC database. So we now know that if we delay it X number of months, what are the prognostic implications of those? That'll help us refine our protocols as we integrate that information. And we're now assessing agreements between clinical and pathologic staging for early lung cancer, because we feel that there can be improvements in that so they better reflect what the long-term survival rates are for those cancers. We've always focused on all the organs in the lung. We report on each and every one of them in our structured report. Our management system actually produces that report, and that can be modified by the radiologist according to what they feel and the recommendations that they feel are appropriate. So for coronary arteries, we've looked at a visual tailored score that you can really do very quickly. You look at each of the 4 coronary arteries and you say, are there any calcifications? Are there mild, moderate, or severe? And we define that by how much of the calcifications. So each person has a score from 0 to 12. And we had demonstrated that it was a useful predictor of cardiovascular disease. And we've shown that these ordinal scores of 0 to 12 are highly correlated with the Agatston scores of 0, low risk, 1 to 400, intermediate risk, and high risk. And we now have 25 years of follow-up of that coronary calcium score from the baseline CT. We have also visually assessed emphysema. We have none, mild, moderate, and severe, and we have 25 years of follow-up on that visual assessment of emphysema. These results are hopefully will be published shortly. So what's important to understand is that how many deaths are there due to COPD versus cardiovascular disease? And we see that that if there's no emphysema, there are 113 deaths in the cohort of 9,047 participants in New York State, which we screened from 2000 to 2008. So 113 of them died of COPD deaths, and almost 7 times as many died of cardiovascular deaths. If you had mild emphysema, you had 83 deaths due to COPD, 281 due to cardiovascular diseases, and it increased with increasing severity of emphysema. So overall, among the 9,047 participants, 295 died of COPD, and 1,150 died of cardiovascular disease. So both of these deaths really exceed the lung cancer deaths. So it's important to pay attention to those. The median age of those deaths was about the same, 82 for cardiovascular diseases, COPD 81, and for all other causes 81. So we wanted to look at the long-term follow-up considering the competing causes of death. So we used the competing risk analysis given by the Fine-Grays subdistribution hazard model. And what we found is that we can calculate the probability for every situation. So for instance, here is the probability of a 65-year-old man who is still a current smoker, has a total smoking history of 43 pack years. And what are his chances of dying if on baseline he had a CAC score of 0, 1 to 3, or 4 to 12? So this is very important information that you can give them on that first CT scan. You can say 25 years later, here's your risk of dying. And we're doing the same for the emphysema, which I can't show you. I'll show you next time. This is a teaser for the next conference. But if we combine cardiovascular screening and lung cancer screening in the US alone, there are 7 million people eligible for under the US Preventive Services Task Force recommendations, but there are 33 that have coronary artery disease and have a CAC score that makes them eligible for screening. So you markedly increase really the people that you're impacting by including coronary artery disease. So we also have I-ELCAP, which is our research to advance the knowledge of optimal treatment for clinical stage 1 lung cancer. And we've looked at lobectomy versus sublobar resection. We've looked at surgery versus radiation therapy, staging, and mediastinal lymph node resection. And now we're looking at the agreement between the clinical and pathologic staging of stage 1A resected lung cancers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia, for this great presentation. So now everything in the US is great. So everything in Europe is a little bit smaller. Yeah, there we go. So I will also present what we are doing with a lot lower numbers, but still interesting, I hope. Those are the updates from the last year. And so we are focusing with the Research Institute on the big three, as also now has been presented by Claudia Henschke. And it's very interesting that they indeed have a kind of integrative impact on the all-cause mortality of the whole group. And that is something that will be, I think, very central in the coming 3 days on what we are going to discuss. So we have a few studies running and databases running. The Nelson study is probably well known. So that's a large study which at the end, it's our RCT study, what at the end proved that there is indeed mortality reduction, which compared it also with not like the NLST with chest X-ray, but with a group that had no intervention at all. Then the Robinska study is a large study, which we also present tomorrow. And that is on coronary calcium, not by eyeballing, but by real, very precise quantification. And we will show there that it is, I think, very important to come to validation and quantification for all those 3 diseases. That is then the Nelson B3 study. That's a study together with the Royal Academy of Sciences of the Netherlands, together with the Ministry of Science and Technology in China. And that is quite impactful in China. So there are people here at the moment also from Tianjin that work on those Nelson B3, also from Shanghai. And yeah, that is indeed still running collaboration. And then the most recent one, that is the foreign learn study, that is still running and will run for a few years. And that is combining all the 3 diseases. So what Claudia Henschke presented here is a major thing as comorbidities in that study, where we also look to the interval, the optimal interval for screening and so forth and so on. So what was very interesting is of course, this almost lifetime follow-ups, which show that there is an enormous impact on the end on lung cancer mortality reduction. Furthermore, we focus on AI validation. We think that AI validation is the most important thing for the coming years, probably the coming decade. It's almost such that it's out of control. And now the legislation, we will also run into this in this meeting. This legislation is trying to catch up with the extremely fast developments of AI. And AI will play a major role. We will see this also in this presentation in China. A major role there. The developments are a lot faster than in the US and in Europe. And I think that will be a major development that we also would follow in this agile congresses. Then furthermore, we have databases from Russia. Yeah, still not from the US, by the way, but from Russia, the UK, the UKLS, which we present here, and the others that I already mentioned. So also from local, from the Netherlands and from other countries, also from 6 other countries that we will show. Then the R&D, we focus on data acquisition, processing, and post-processing. Yeah, we will show that also in this meeting, how that can be integrated and is important because all those processes influence each other. Very important are the decision algorithms, which there is stepwise analysis necessary to find out what is the influence of the decision algorithms on the final outcome of the participant. The data integration is very important. How do we do this? Because the data are so many that without the integration of those, we cannot go further, and we cannot exchange and monitor what we are doing, and we cannot exchange the data that are coming out with others and compare them as we did in the past. Then we work on imaging biomarkers, which are very important to find out on which data, which outcomes, and which figures you can really make a clinical decision. Now, furthermore, as you probably all experience every day, the workload is getting out of hand everywhere, especially in screening. And so a workload reduction and use AI for the workload reduction could be a way out to still get control on all those developments. Then the monitoring of the whole process, so from the very beginning to the end, is for things of quality control extremely important. And then we work on the report coupling of referral and actionability at a nodule level, but also at a participant level. And that is also what came out of the data, of course. The more information that we have, we also standardize the calcium outcomes that we report to the GP, but then you get all kind of difficult integrating questions. What should be treated first? Does it make any sense to treat a person with a very high calcium score and a low probability nodule? Now, all that kind of questions will come up. Then one of the most important things that we are working on is AI validation and give feedback to software developers. So we have now, we test now, I think, about 5 or 6 different software companies for nodules, but also for coronary calcium. And then, the last 5 years, not that many, of course, as the Americans, but we had over 100 publications on those issues. Now, very important at this moment is that we work with a private cloud, so not with an open source cloud, but with a private cloud, which is in Bytesnet, a high performance computer center in the Netherlands. And that is up to all the regulations that are coming out at the moment. Now, here you see the current foreign learn study is running in 5 European countries and the UK. Now, one would argue that the UK is also Europe, so I will stay out of that discussion. Then it should be 6. That's the Netherlands, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and the UK. So we finalized the baseline round now in December 24. And this study is led by the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And you can find all the information and the reports of the baseline round at the website of the European Committee. Now, at the right, you see the different centers where we work with. Now, the study want to answer. So for learn, everyone don't understand, of course, the name. It's a very complicated name. I have to recall it myself all the time. So it stands for this 4 in eyes. So to make it very short, we work on the integration of those people that should get, of course, the screening and hard to reach persons. Then we focus on the foreign learning follow-ups, CT examinations as an institute. And at the moment, that is what we did last year. We work also on the analysis of the calcium, reproducibility and progression, and at the end also on the emphysema cluster analysis, which is completely new. There are very few papers that address this new approach. Now here you can see the interface that we use for online daily monitoring. So this was the situation in April 12, and then we included 15,044.3. So that changes per hour more or less. And here you can see the annual, the repeats, everything. So that kind of monitoring is for us extremely important, because you can see here at the right that we can also track down how many false negatives we have for the whole study, but also especially for AI. And we track down everything that we are doing with AI. Now, I will go briefly through the publications. So what we are studying is our different strategies. So now the radiologist will work with the CAD system in the screening, and optimally, you would have 2 radiologists working with a CAD system. That would be current practice, as you see at the left. Now, what we did is replace 1 radiologist with AI, and we blind the outcomes. And if they are discrepant, we will bring that to a special panel, and they will look after the discrepancies. And after the read of the expert panel, we will decide if it's actionable or not. And then the last one is a test situation, which we want to test for the future. And that is, can we indeed replace the radiologist for the first read? And if we can, then we should have an extremely high negative predictive power to rule out all those participants, because we have, of course, in the screening session, less than 10% people that have lung cancer. Can we easily rule out those 90% with AI? So that's a different approach than we have with normally with AI, where we want to prove that there is lung cancer. Now, this is published in the feasibility in a study that is focusing on the feasibility of AI as first reader. Then here you see the different strategies that we published. Then we have an overview, which is also very interesting, on the VDT. And so in this meta-analysis, all VDT studies are represented. And we came out that indeed for small cell, squamous cell, from the data of the literature, and part of the adenocarcinomas indeed have a VDT shorter than 400 days, which is the cutoff in the Nelson, which is also the cutoff in Forn-Lungen. And that we have only adenocarcinomas with a longer, slower growth rate, and that is for adenocarcinomas between 400 and 600, and for the GDO, so without a solid component, it goes far over the 600. So those are the common thresholds, which are, I think, very well established now. Then we published something on the calcium score, which we will also address in this meeting, on the reproducibility, which is, I think, very important, that you can really trust on your outcome with a non-gated one-run system. And if you cannot do it, you cannot just follow up. You cannot do the follow-up, and you cannot not do any progression or regression under treatment. And yeah, the accuracy is really amazing. As you can see here, I just show here the overall accuracy after 3 months. So the hypothesis is that there is no relevant change in coronary calcium over 3 months. And you can see here that we have a mean score of 129 at baseline, and 3 months later, 132. So that is in a very large cohort. So that is really very impressive. Then I will not go. Yeah, this is also, so the big three we test, and we work also on the emphysema score. Now we can discuss that later because it's quite complex, but we showed that with the low attenuation area percentage, you have no correlation with visual assessment, with eyeballing. And now we are working on this, on cluster analysis. And as you can see here, that the cluster analysis really has a better correlation with eyeballing. And that is where we are working on at the moment. And we presented that at the RSNA last year. And at the right, you can see that it's real 3D dimensional presented here. Now here you see the correlation. So it's all very dependent on the HU cutoff level. So if you use the commonly used cutoff of -950, then you have the best correlation from 70 millimeters cluster size onwards. But if you want to have a 6 millimeter optimal cutoff, then you have to go further down with your threshold to -970. Now, those are the publications that we did together with the whole group of Agile. So there is also the Spanish publication that was done by in Madrid by Luis Sayo, and the others that we did together on different issues that will also be addressed in this meeting. Now, thank you for your attention.